Right. Hi, everyone. Hello, wherever you are. My name is Samer Bagaeen. I'm Professor of Planning at the University of Kent at the Kent School of Architecture and Planning. And I'm here today to tell you about what we do on our planning program. And I'm going to do that in the context of some of the global challenges that we're dealing with at the moment. You've got what now appear to be simple ones, flooding. But we've also got obviously the complex one that none of us can escape from, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'll start with that. So early on in 2020, what later became known as the COVID-19 virus started to spread from Wuhan to other countries around the world. For me, it hit very close to home in mid-February. When a cluster of cases emerged in Brighton and Hove, where I live in the UK, and it was aided by a super spreader. So we know movement in a way, and that movement of people between cities, countries, and continents obviously is a facilitator for that rapid growth of this virus. In March 2020, other countries around the world became the main focus of the spread. We've got Europe now a big center of the pandemic. And according to the chief of the World Health Organization, in March 2020, when we look at the spread of the disease, it took 67 days to reach the first 100,000 cases, 11 days to reach the second 100,000, and only 4 days to reach the third. And now we know it only took 2 days to reach the fourth 100,000 cases. So it's a rapid growth. So what can we do about it as built environment professionals and professions and people who teach built environment? We can't escape it. What we can do is through the work that we do with governments, with policymakers, with city leaders, with other professional bodies, is to mitigate and impact the spread of this virus so that we remain resilient, which is very important these days, both mentally, psychologically, and physically. And the challenge then for us is to emerge out of the lockdown that we all find ourselves in, probably more prepared for what comes next. It's very, very likely, it's looking very, very likely now, that the way we work, the way we do things, the way we teach, the way we move will be very different after all of this is finished. And so will the way we make decisions about our cities, about our towns, about our high streets. And as we look at the impact of the virus on our high streets, shut shops, nothing open, can't absolutely go anywhere. So there's a different relationship evolving with our high streets. There's also the relationship between the insurers, if you like, which some of us in the built environment profession, especially in planning, in architecture, surveying, and so on, we deal very much with on a day-to-day basis, because they're the people who insure the physical infrastructure that all of us look after. And I'm going to say a little bit about climate change, because what we've been doing for quite a while, a good number of years, and accelerating in recent times, is to look at the policy instruments that we need in order to deliver on the climate change challenge. Certainly, that's what's been taking a lot of our time. Retrofit of buildings, the design of new buildings, the materials, how we build and construct with modular and factory-based solutions, and so on. So all of these are important, but all of them suddenly pale into insignificance as we look at this pandemic, which presents a huge challenge to the rest of us in the built environment. And I'll start off, if you like, again, quoting a previous head of the United Nations Committee for Disaster Risk Reduction. We talk about human security. So it emerged as we went through the, if you like, the cycle of events while we talked about the virus over the past few weeks, that it was on our radar. It was on the radar of the World Health Organization. It was on the radar of the United Nations. It was on the radar of the World Economic Forum, albeit not for the last 8 years, because the last time they logged the risk of a pandemic in the Global Risks Report was in 2008. That's actually 12 years. 12 years ago. So none of this is new. And anyway, we should have been more prepared. And the argument here is about preparedness. And how do we then teach, people coming through our courses, through our programs, through our universities, to be prepared for whatever life throws at them. Certainly we need to be fast, we need to be agile, we need to be mobile, but sometimes we cannot be that, especially if we're under lockdown. So it's very important then to show that resilience in order to deliver, so that then we're able to make an impact on, if you like, our town centers, the trade, the commerce, the real estate transactions, the health of our citizens, and all of the people who go through and transit through our built environment on a day-to-day basis. And that's where we fit into this cycle. And there are a set of relationships and interdependencies here. And what I'm going to do now is just show you I'm going to show you this curve graph, which effectively, let's just see, this is testing the technology. So hopefully you can now see that. Shamini, can you see that? Sorry, I shouldn't be saying that.
Yes, all good.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. So what are you looking at? So just testing the technology there for a second, is effectively the stuff that all of us have been seeing in the news, which is the graph of the spike of cases of the coronavirus in red at the top, and the flattened curve in blue also at the top, which is effectively what would happen when all of us stay indoors under lockdown. The mirror image of that is obviously very important, and it's a way of thinking. It's a new way of thinking in some respect, which is we cannot look at things in isolation. So again, as planners, as architects, as surveyors, we cannot possibly look at things in isolation. So when we look at the top curve, when we look at the red graph at the top, the spiked one, the mirror image of that is the flattened red curve at the bottom, which is the economy, which means if we let the cases spike, we actually have a much less impactful recession, i.e. the recession is not as bad as it could be. If we flatten the curve and we put our cities under lockdown, the blue curve at the bottom then spikes, which means actually we're looking at a recession, and a deeper one, and probably a depression as a result of that. And it's that sort of relationship between, if you like, the two things here, economy and pandemic. And the point is that none of these things exist in isolation. The same as the work that we do as built environment professionals. None of the work that we do exists in isolation separately. We're all part of a system. And what we need to understand, and what we would teach you here at the University of Kent, is that you need to view things as part of systems. And one of the assignments that, for example, our students in planning policy this year are looking at is that relationship between systems. So they are looking at transportation. They are looking at the relationship to the high street shutting down, the lettings market, the retail market, the construction sector, the transportation sector. All of those are individual systems. And actually it's that relationship between those systems which is important, and we should take into account. So where does that leave us, if you like? So we know that dealing with systems is a challenge. We know that the challenge of climate change we will have to come back to as we prepare for COP, the big climate conference in Glasgow later this year in November, and that should still be happening. Nobody's saying that it wouldn't. But what are the impacts of, if you like, reducing travel and movement, shutting down shops and businesses, asking people to work from home? Does the technology cope? Do you have enough broadband at home to do that? And so on. What about your supply chain? How agile is it? Can you get the goods in? Can you get the goods to move? Can universities, and we are in one that's actually dealt very well with the current situation, switching everything online in a short period of time, as have schools. We've got suddenly millions of children around the world learning at home through technology. So all of those are challenges that we cannot escape. They will change the way we do things. We have obviously now a list of what we call key workers that we know we need in order to get things going. And we have built environment professionals on those lists. So you'd be glad to know. So planners, local authority planners are on the list. We've got the tech that allows local decision making to happen, even though that's slowly making its progress through the Parliament here in the UK, for example. So we've got the basic bits of the infrastructure in place. And once we get through this testing moment, it will probably give us all an opportunity to think more holistically, to think about systems, to think about resilience, our own as well as that of our cities, our infrastructure, our health systems, our transportation systems, and so on. And then we can focus on the other things that we've been focusing on all of the past few years. We can go back and think about climate change, but we can think about climate change more holistically in the context of health and pandemics and economy and recession and technology, more importantly, and how that future looks. And hopefully when you come to the University of Kent, to the Kent School of Architecture and Planning, you can be part of that drive for innovation and thinking into what the future looks like. Thank you so much and hope to see you soon.